In October of 1999, a crane appeared on the front lawn of the Corps of Engineers, just across the street from the international headquarters of Duluth Shipping News. The grass was still green. The Philip R. Clark and all the other vessel traffic was still going under the bridge. But that would soon change. The appearance of the crane signaled the beginning of a 6-month maintenance project on the Duluth Area Lift Bridge. Many of the moving parts of the bridge were taken down using the crane. They were cleaned, fixed, or replaced, and brought back for the crane and her crew to put them back where they came from. Much of that work occurred in February of 2000, the month before the 2000 shipping season would start. The crane moved men and material from street level to the top of the bridge where ironworkers put the pieces back in their places on the bridge. Happily for those ironworkers walking high up on the bridge, we had a mild and dry winter, although by February it started to look a little more like winter. By then, the Clark was deep into winter layup at the port terminal, getting a new coat of paint for the coming season. The Clark left the port for the new season on March 31st. The day before, the Indiana Harbor became the first vessel to come under the newly rebuilt aerial bridge. February 2001 was a slow month for the Duluth Shipping News. I can tell you we had some pretty days, and the aquarium was finished, and at least 2 ice skaters could be seen on the outdoor rink close by. I sometimes assist outside media companies that are here to work on a project about Duluth Shipping. I'm good at suggesting places to go to get a nice picture. On rare occasions, I have been able to take them to the top of several local elevators to get some nice shots. In January, the Star Tribune in Minneapolis called for my help, but with an added touch. They needed help getting good shots, but this time the article was about the Duluth Shipping News. Here, their photographers taking a picture of the Paul R. Tuggertha at winter layup at Midwest Energy before he took my picture. A month later, in February, the article was published, and I talked a friend into reading the paper so I could take a picture. Most years, ice covers the harbor and sometimes Lake Superior, but not before 10 to 12 Great Lakes freighters arrive and find a dock to spend the winter. Many are at Fraser shipyards for winter maintenance and 5-year checkups. Some are pretty much just sitting quietly waiting for the new season. The others are at docks around the harbor, usually 3 or 4 at the port terminal, and always one at Midwest Energy Resources. Here are some shots from other years that I took at Fraser shipyards. That's the St. Clair on the left and the Lee Tuggertha on the right in February 2008. Here we see, from left to right, the Frontenac, the Lee Tuggertha, and the Edward L. Ryerson, also in February 2008. In January 2009, we see the K.E. Barker, the Lee Tuggertha, and the American Victory. Winter layup for the 2002-2003 season found the Edwin H. Gott on the left and the Presque Isle on the right, moored at the port terminal Garfield dock. Fleetmate Roger Blau was around the corner, just off the Murphy fuel dock. And the Walter J. McCarthy was docked just behind the Gott. That's the Tug North Dakota in the foreground. The Presque Isle is an interesting vessel. She makes about 15 trips to the Twin Ports each season, usually loading iron ore pellets at the CN dock to take to Gary, Indiana, and sometimes Conneaut, as well as some other ports. Most often she is in Lake Superior to load iron ore pellets at the Two Harbors CN dock, although we see her here loading at the CN dock in West Duluth on January 6, 2011. Down the dock a little way, the K.E. Barker is waiting for the Presque Isle to complete loading iron ore pellets. All boats have a story to tell. The Presque Isle has many. She's a tug barge with both pieces named Presque Isle. They can be separated, but are always connected when moving cargo. Here's a section of the mechanism that holds the two parts together. Self-unloaders generally operate with a conveyor system running underneath the cargo holds. When discharging cargo, the holds are opened at the bottom and cargo falls down onto the conveyor, which moves it along to the unloading boom at one end of the vessel. Probably the noisiest and dirtiest part of the boats are the tunnels that run the length of the boat on each side of the cargo holds. You see here the tunnel on the Presque Isle. You'll see on the left the slanted sides of the cargo hold, slanted so the cargo can easily fall onto the conveyor belt. For comparison, here is a picture of one of the tunnels on the Paul R. Tregurtha. Among other projects for the winter, the Presque Isle was getting some electrical work done in her pilot house. Meanwhile, around the corner, the Roger Blau spent the winter. This is her engine room. Earlier, all the pistons had been taken out of her two 16-cylinder engines to be repaired or replaced. Here they are back in line and waiting to be reinstalled. In February 2004, we got a chance to watch a new build come down the rails at Marinette Marine. Since the new vessel, the U.S. Coast Guard cutter Alder, would be home ported in Duluth, 2 busloads of people left Duluth to join in the festivities. On arrival, we drove across the bridge to Menominee in Michigan to take some pictures of the Alder as she stood perched at the top of the rail she would slide down the next day. The latest edition of the Staten Island Ferry, also built at Marinette, was in the river dock close by the Alder. Here is the ferry, now in operation in New York. While we were there, the Coast Guard cutter Mobile Bay came by to make sure there would be open water and not ice for the Alder to splash into the next day. We bussed back to the shipyard and had a chance to walk around. The Alder sure seemed ready to go down the rails and into the water the next morning. Launch day arrived. I was busy setting up my video camera close by the tug Erika Kobasic. She was there, along with the tug on the other side, to tie a line to the Alder in case they were needed to stabilize the Alder after she entered the water. Erika Kobasic was in Duluth 5 years later, bringing a barge holding a large container from Sandusky to Duluth. For most of the trip, she towed it behind her attached to a long tow rope. About a mile from the Duluth piers, she pulled the barge in and attached the tug to the side of the barge for the trip through the piers and to the port terminal to discharge the piece directly onto a truck. Now, launch morning, I went to the other side of the Alder to get a picture of the Kobasic. The Alder is only partly in view at the left. You can see the rails she will slide down when launched, and then the Kobasic. And the Coast Guard cutter Hollyhock is just behind the Kobasic. The Alder is number 216 in the Juniper series of Coast Guard cutters. The Hollyhock is 215. She was launched the previous year and is an exact duplicate of the Alder. All was ready for the launch. The gates were opened up and visitors came in following some bagpipes. All that was left was to get wet, and I did, and then cold, but I'm not complaining.
I told them they get wet. They didn't believe me. They don't believe me. Yeah, I break up.
Later in the month, back in Duluth, I went over to visit the Paul Tregurtha and found the engineering crew hard at work on the boat's giant diesel engines. All 32 pistons from the 32 cylinders of the Tregurtha's two 6-cylinder engines have been taken out for cleaning and inspection. Here they are in the process of putting them all back into the cylinders. As the month was drawing to a close, Lake Superior, at our end at least, was free of ice.